There's no time to waste. We not only got one feature to go over, but we got two, which for us, we didn't expect for the next episode. But here we are back on Inside the Show. Welcome on back, everyone. Appreciate you guys tuning in or watching on YouTube. Kooks, we got a unexpected big episode to talk about here. We got the Negro Leagues feature, and then we got the gameplay feature as well. Hey, I'm ready to jump right into it. Let's get to it. You ready for this?
I'm ready, man. Let's go.
All right, let's start with the feature that we got from last week, and that was the edition of Negro Leagues coming to MLB Show 23. Now, the feature wasn't the typical feature that we've seen in the past. They brought in Negro League Baseball Museum president Bob Kendrick into the studio to sit down with Ramon and the other producer, I forgot his name here, Kuz, because I've been
I'll
forgetting
find it for
everyone's
you. You
news.
keep going. I'll
But
find it for
anyway,
you.
this feature, hands down, was probably, in my opinion, even though it didn't have, I don't know how to phrase it. It just felt very informational. Not only that, the importance of this feature coming to MLB Show being the Negro Leagues, and it was very or like a podcast type of episode where we got to talk. Well, Ramon got to talk to Bob Kendrick on his knowledge of the Negro Leagues and how to immersively bring it to MLB Show as the new project. And Cougs, I was just kind of memorized throughout the whole hour. I think it went about hour and 6 minutes where we heard stories, we heard experiences of why this is so important to bring the Negro Leagues to this game. I was just in like kind of awe. I could listen to Bob just talk all day about this. That's the feeling I got. I really got that connection of what they're trying to accomplish to bringing the Negro Leagues to Tell Me the Show.
Yeah, it was awesome. And the other guy sitting at the table, his name is Jared Schiff. He's the senior narrative designer. Want to give him his props
Just
too
too.
for all the work he's done. But yeah, no, it was really like you said, it was a very different feature premiere, and it was the thing I loved about it is that it was very informational, but not in a way where it felt like you were being lectured at all. It was very informational because the people that are talking about it, specifically Bob Kendrick, is just so passionate about all of these players, and you can tell how much, uh, you know, time and how much, love he has for these players that are now being represented in the MLB licensed video game. Like it's such a big deal. There's going to be so many eyes on this, and the thing that I took away from it is that more than honestly, more than anything I've seen SDS do is the feeling of pride that they have in this. The feeling that
Mhm.
they've really done something that they feel like is gonna, make a difference. Something that they feel like is going to be really special when everybody gets their hands on the game. That's really what I took from it because when you look at it from a gameplay thing, it seems pretty self-explanatory. You play these storylines with these 8 different players. You get these informational videos. You get your gameplay, but it's just you can really tell that this was a big passion project for Ramon kind of getting the idea out there and then seeing how it's all come together. It was just it was really great to watch, and I know there's probably a lot of people out there that were like, oh, show some other new legends, show some more gameplay. I didn't think we needed that there. I think
Yeah.
what we got was great, learning about all of these players, learning about all of these new legends that are coming into the game, and just seeing the pride and the passion that everybody who's worked on this project really brought forth. That to me was really what made this feature premiere awesome.
Yeah, it really did, and I even learned more as we listened, like with I believe it was Hank Thompson. Let me get that correct. Being one of the three that comes in 1947 season. Once they started integrating into Major League Baseball, we all know Jackie Robinson being the first, but I never realized there was two others being Hank Thompson, and then I believe it was Larry Doby being the other player that comes into the season. So that right there, kind of like you're, I'm learning just from that hour sit down, and now being able to mercilessly get involved with the storylines in MLB The Show 23, I mean, the stories behind it, I'm very excited for, and just being able to play with these players is gonna be very excited as well, so I'm here for it. I mean, they showed a preview of the Jackie Robinson one with the story, and talk about production behind not behind Bob Kendrick talking about the story of Jackie, and then the video that you saw with that, and then go right into the moment to hit, I believe it was a single with Jackie Robinson at the time.
Yeah.
Everything about that presentation production was just top notch.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, even down to the little details of having the players wear hats at the plate instead of helmets, and kind of seeing like the baggier jerseys, and even the new stadium that they showed off. Like
Yes.
all of this stuff was really cool. And obviously we got more gameplay footage the next week with the feature premiere we're going to talk about. But I thought that little clip just kind of giving you a little bit of a tease of what this mode's going to look like, kind of all the details that they've put forth, I thought was a good move. I thought it was just enough for people to be like, "Oh, okay, I like that." Now I'm ready to see more, and that's exactly what they did.
Exactly. And also with the latest feature, they kind of confirmed at the beginning that all these 8 players will be able to play in other,
Mhm.
modes within, the show, so that kinda hints that it is going to be DD. However, it Ramon did make a nice little tidbit there. It's going to those players, if they make it in DD, I feel like it's gonna be based on that story, 'cause he did make, like, a little tidbit that it would be based on those storylines that you play in, that particular mode.
Yeah, I think he mentioned, I think, specifically with Jackie Robinson, because they said, we have 8 Negro League legends coming into the
Yep.
game, but one of them is Jackie Robinson. So everybody's like, oh, he's already in the game. But Ramon made it clear that this is a different version of Jackie
Mhm.
Robinson. This is, I'm sure we'll still get a Dodgers Jackie Robinson at some point, but like this specific Jackie Robinson is, it's not the traditional one that, you might normally see. So curious how that's gonna look, especially with a
I
guy
think I
like,
do.
yeah,
I He might be shortstop.
that would be
He mi
cool. That would be a cool
because,
change.
friend of the show, Matthias White, who's always been, um, preaching that get Negro Leagues in a game, he actually made a tweet earlier today because of that pivot and indicating that Jackie Robinson hit 375 at shortstop for the Monarchs
Wow.
at that time. So, could we actually see Jackie making his way in the being a top shortstop in the game this year? Being that Honus Wagner type, but maybe, I don't know, more flexible. Actually, Honus is so versatile as is. Maybe one A, 1B type of thing with him and Jack. That is if Honus is still in the game, of course, but
Yeah, of
still,
course.
that's gonna be interesting to see, and, yeah, that makes me excited.
Now let
Um,
me
eh
let me ask you a question, Scuffy. From this feature premiere and all the things we've learned about all these players, which
mhm.
player stands out to you as the one that you'd be most excited to use in a Diamond Dynasty setting?
Oh, it's still Donald, hands down.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him last episode. I mean, 14 no hitters is nothing. I
Oh
mean, you
yeah,
don't see that. You really don't see that, and I'm very excited to see how he does in the game. So it's still Donaldson for me. What about you?
gotcha. I think it was Martin Tehigo, the guy who can play literally every position on the field.
Oh, okay.
That especially with what they talked about with like two-way functionality, which we'll get into a little bit later. Yo, I don't know. Like I can't even picture in my head how that card is going to be used in Diamond Dynasty if he can play literally everywhere. Like that's kind of ridiculous, but I love it. So that he's the guy right now that I'm probably the most excited to try out in online.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see more that comes out from this as we move on to get to MLB The Show 23. Maybe get a little bit more tidbits of a storyline and see the moments, maybe see a path to leading up on what achievement you get after, especially if they bring it to DD or not. There's a lot of things that I'm excited for about this mode, and not from this year, the years I think they say they had a 5-year contract, and they even mentioned in the feature period that Ramon was talking to, Jeter about it, and Jeter was like, I don't know if you have enough time to talk about this." I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah oh, sorry to cut you off, but
No, no, you're good. I wasn't gonna say anything.
I
You're good.
I was gonna, leave at the piece where, I mean, it's kinda been broadcasted that the feature premiere is just shout out to Ramon. You see how
Yep.
passionate he was about this project. It probably to get that initiative into MLB The Show, he was probably the main person to get that going, and, to finally see it come fruition, and it's awesome to see just everyone, not just within the community, just everyone that's part of this is very excited, and, yeah, we can't wait, and we appreciate it to finally be able to play with these players in MLB The Show.
Yeah, I mean, I know you know, anytime you work for a long period of time about on a project you're passionate about, and you finally get to the finish line, and you finally, get to show it off or whatever it is, like it's a very special feeling. And for Ramon being able to kind of get the ball rolling on this thing, and then have this come out and also get the reception that it's got from across the community, like it's universally loved. Um, like that's got to be a really special feeling. So of course, big shout out to Ramon. Awesome job getting this started. Big shout out to Bob Kendrick, Jared Schiff, all the guys working on this. Like just really, really great feature that I am really excited to play. And as someone who pretty much only plays Diamond Dynasty, I'm already thinking about how what storyline I'm going to be going after first. It's just it's a cool mode, it's a cool idea, and it's a pretty important step for not only MLB the Show but just baseball in general.
Yeah. Couldn't say it better. I can't wait to see more of that. Also, as we get those new legends in the game, we also got a legend reveal as well this week. This week was filled with everything here, Coogs. They posted last week that I think it was last Friday that we're getting a legend reveal on Monday, and then Tuesday was gonna be the feature premiere, and then today, as we're recording, the tech test comes out right now,
Mm.
and we got a new legend. Well, I will say more so returning legend. Well, actually, he is a new legend because he never retired, was, in the game before. So, yeah, new legend, and it was second baseman Ian Kinsler, who
Yep.
we've seen in DGs from the start until I believe he too retired in 19?
Yeah.
Was 19 or 20? I think it was
Yeah,
19.
19.
Um, but he's been in this game for quite a while. Beforehand, it's been 3, 4 years now, and he's always been one of the community favorites just due to his two-handed quick swing of his. Me personally, I never do good with him, but I know how much players love to use him. So I gotta ask you from the start, on the 1 to 5 scale, how does Ian Kinsler do for the uh, I guess, first comeback legend that we get today?
Probably like a 2 for me.
Okay.
Don't have any doubt in my mind that he'll be a solid middle infielder, especially now with all the different series of cards we have, like signatures, retro finest, awards, whatever, you know what it is. Like the dude is 7th all time in second baseman or home runs for second baseman. So like he's gonna have some pop. He's gonna be solid up the middle with what is it, 2 gold gloves, 4 gold gloves, whatever it is. Like he'll be good. So yeah, as far as a legend though, it doesn't blow my mind. I was hoping for maybe a bigger legend coming off of the Negro League announcement. So hoping for maybe a
Mhm.
David Wright, a Beltray, an A-Rod, somebody like that. But you know what? Hopefully that just means for me that I can only go up from here. What about you, Scuffy?
No, I would say it's like, in the middle for me, 2 to 3. Like me personally, I never really did good with Ian Kinsler cards. So I know I see the other excitement for other players that were good, but for me, it wasn't as high. I think I'm on the same boat with you. I was surprised, like, they're doing a legend reveal like that before a gameplay trailer. I feel like something's up with the gameplay trailer. Either they're trying to get rights or there's something going on because last year we got on the 9th, and now it's February 15th. We already got 2 feature premieres. Not only that, we got the tech tests already underway, and before that, I mean, last year we got the gameplay trailer, and then we were able to play with, Joe Mauer card, Murnock, another Legends that got revealed in the tech test from last year. This time we don't. But either way, Ian Kingsbury, he needs to be one of those. We were talking about Jeter last week, had to be one of the first 99s to drop this, in, like, the first year. I feel like he's in that same boat.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. I just I wish I hope we get some good legends and like you said with the trailer last year, like, remember the whole Randy debacle, right? Where Randy was at the end of the trailer and then the trailer like mysteriously was like deleted or edited or something, and then Randy wasn't in there anymore, and then everybody was wondering for so long whether Randy was in the game. Maybe that's why there's something going on with the gameplay trailer. Maybe they don't want to have that same issue happen this year or something, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It feels weird that we don't have an actual gameplay trailer yet, especially because we already have the gameplay feature premiere. Like you would think the gameplay trailer would come out first to give
And with
yourself,
the pre-orders, like,
yeah,
yeah, you had to sell the game, right? And usually
yeah.
gameplay trailer visually tries to sell the game, or especially the
So
people that are not like hardcore for us, or for trying to get other new users come in or bring back, other users come in, especially we have Jeter. I kind of figure you have a trailer by now.
exactly, yeah. It's a little odd. And you and I have both predicted that the trailer would come out. If it didn't come out last week, it was going to come out this Monday. Didn't do that. So really kind of clueless as to when this thing is going to release. Maybe they'll release it even closer to the launch of the game, which it's once again just kind of wild that they have feature premieres going on without even a legitimate marketing trailer for the game. Like I don't know, it's kind of odd, but honestly, who
They
knows at
gave
this
us, like,
point?
glimpse. They gave us,
Yeah,
like, a little glimpse in the beginning with the intro when we saw Jazz do the Euro step and that, but we didn't
yeah,
get the full thing. I was like, "Oh, are they going" like, when they showed it last week, "Oh, are we getting the gameplay trailer right there then?" And then they just cut away, but anyway, we should get it sooner than later, I would figure, but we still got the gameplay feature to go over, and I kinda just jump right into it because a lot of different things that we need to talk about today, and especially if you're listening and playing the tech tests, a lot of things that you're gonna want to try out, until the 21st, until the tech test ends, or even beyond that, because I feel like you'll still be able to boot it up and do, practice mode. But either way, let's jump right into the gameplay, feature, and before we get to the actual gameplay itself, they did give us a little, like, teases, even with Diamond Dynasty and then franchise. I mean, Luis kinda hinted at that Diamond Dynasty might, or I think it was actually Merca that was saying, that he likes what approach that DD is doing, something he hasn't seen before, or according to those lines, and I mean, you hear that, Cougs, like, my interest goes through the level, like, there, see what that's about, but we won't know until later on with the feature premiere, and there was also something top secret which they mentioned that they can't talk about either. I don't know. We'll see what that is. And then they also went with the franchise, saying a franchise has a lot of updates, including that will be draft that they already mentioned. But off those two statements right there, I know we're kind of like deciphering like a 10-second clip here, but still, that's big information right there to like get you wonder what's going on for 23.
yeah. They definitely wanted to kick it off with a little bit of mystery, a little bit of intrigue. Um, And luckily for the Diamond Dynasty portion of it, at least we got a couple pieces of information at the very end of the stream. But yeah, as far as the mystery thing, like the top secret thing, I have zero idea what that could be. I don't know if that relates to Diamond Dynasty. I don't know if that
Yeah.
relates to another part of the mode, maybe like a because they mentioned Diamond Dynasty and franchise. Does this mean like a Road to the Show revamp? Does this mean something with like I don't know March to October? Like I have no idea what it could possibly be. Um, but I mean, hopefully, whatever it is something enjoyable. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how it goes and go from there. And let's jump right into the gameplay. And I gotta say, because well, the transparency before we get into everything, transparency, what they gave us through this feature was really nice to see that we haven't seen before. I'm more talking about what certain attributes mean. Give it a little bit more transparency of, okay, you got this attribute, it does this, this, and this. I feel like that was kind of missing, right? Previously, where we are kind of guessing, oh, does this do that? What does I mean, they go over one, the biggest one was clutch, which we'll get to momentarily. Like they put clutch all the way up, but we don't even know what that does. But anyway, still, I love the transparency that the gameplay team did with Ramon. Um, and going forward, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record on this podcast. So just well, this episode, I should say. So forgive me. I already know that's coming, but just from that standpoint, before we go or anything, after hearing all that, did it make you feel more excited? Because you like to keep the even keel approach until you can play the game, right? So
Yeah.
I gotta ask, what was the level from start to the end?
Well, like you said, I always try to keep a very like a very reserved mindset because I've said it on the pod in the past. There's you could say the best things ever about the gameplay and the changes you've made. You can make all these statements, all these claims, but until I get my hand on the game and kind of get to experience it for myself, I want to hold off on my level of hype or excitement. Um, but as the stream kept going, every change that they were making, I was like, okay, I like that. I like that. I think that's good. Ooh, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to affect things during, the course of the year. Overall, every single thing that they talked about, I thought was a positive change. Even if it was minor or even if it was something completely like just that kind of turns things on its head. Whatever they talked about, I was on board with. I was thinking, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You start with stuff like the throw meter, and you're like, okay, yeah, fielding could use a little bit of an upgrade. And then you start talking about, the foul balls and how the PCI is shrinking, and you're like, oh yeah, no, that's what I've been wanting. So like every bullet point that they covered, every portion of the stream, I was like, yeah, no, this is exactly the type of response I was looking for from the feedback of 22 going into the pre-launch and the launch of 23. So overall, man, this was as far as gameplay feature premieres slash streams go. For me, this is one of the best ones, if not the best one that they've ever done. I was really happy with basically everything that they said.
Yes, I agree, and it is a lot of things that we talked through 22. What I guess we picked at, whether it been the foul balls, and other things like that, other topics like that. It was kinda answered, right? They
Yep.
kinda acknowledge it on their side, and, they seen what they saw on their side as well, indicate how they felt and what they're gonna do about it, but, I wanna jump right into it. We're gonna start from what they went over from the start to the end, and, they had the gameplay team with Kyle Saul and Connor Ryan, talking to Ramon here, and they started with fielding. The fielding attribute, actually, we're gonna be going over a lot of attributes today, and they started out with the fielding attribute, and they're kind of highlighted. What does the fielding attribute do? Now, the fielding attribute is for non-throwing, errors, and it's also for transitions and jump dives. I put if you guys can't see this, I put jump and dive right next to it, but I meant to do slash, that's why I jump dive. Anyway, jump and dives as well. And they start out with the transitions in the outfield, right? We got to see the different transitions, how a particular player will start his route when a fly ball is hit. Would it be immediately? Does it go in and go out depending on his rating? It was cool to see, but offhand, just to knowing what this particular attribute does was big enough for me to like, maybe we should have known this all this time.
Yeah, no, the I so for clutch, like
Or
this, this
we wanna go
wait, wait,
straight to
what were you
clutch?
what
I was talking
attribute were
about
you?
fielding. I was talking
Fielding,
fielding.
okay, okay. I got
We'll get to
distracted by
clutch.
the
Don't
but
worry. No,
yeah,
no worries.
I
We'll
got
get to clutch.
distracted by that. No, so fielding, yeah, with, like, are you talking about, like, the first baseman
Yeah,
picking
so
having
the first baseman, non-throwing errors, so
yeah,
the way
yeah,
he would pick it, transitions, how he would dive, this is mostly affect, like, as Ramon said, the Frank Thomases in the world.
yeah, no,
Um
I think that's good be or it's it's gonna be good, but also, like, there's gonna be an element to it where, like, you let's say you have, like, a really, really good fielder over at shortstop, right? Let's say you have Ozzie Smith, just for sake of argument. He's gonna have that 99 fielding, he's gonna have, the great reaction. He's gonna make those plays and he's gonna make those throws to first base. But if you have, like Frank Thomas over at first base, that's going to be a little bit frustrating because at the end of the day, the I feel like the hardest part about that specific play is the throw, is the jump throw. It's the acrobatic movement that the shortstop is making to get the ball out of his glove and over to first base. So having the possibility that they're going to not always make that pick, it's definitely a little bit more realistic, but in I just feel like that it's going to be a little bit frustrating at times because to me that makes it seem like that's going to happen a little bit more often regardless of the rating of the first baseman. So like even if you have I don't know what first baseman has like 99 fielding, but let's take a guy like I don't know, let's just say like a guy like Freddie Freeman. He has some pretty solid fielding attributes at
Mhm.
first base. What is really the threshold where they're going to make a lot more of those errors? Like are they going to be making errors like 10% more of the time, 20% more of the time? Like I know the attribute is going to kind of dictate that, but when I see something like that, that to me is like a pretty big change. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious what the rate of that change is going to be for those first basemen. Now, I'm pretty sure that if you get that green throw on the tough play with the new throwing meter being moved, if you actually hit that green region, you probably don't have to worry about that, I would assume.
Well, I was playing a little bit before, so the yellow, pretty much if you get the yellow, it's gonna be in the dirt. If you get on the green, it's gonna be on the fly, so you
Mhm.
won't have to worry about that. So it's
Okay.
it's kind of like and that kinda transitions into the new, revamp for the throw meter accuracy,
Yeah.
which they announced right after the fielding, indicating they updated it, the throw meter accuracy because everything's just felt automatic. Um, Pretty much didn't really have to look at the screen a bit. If you know where the green section is, it's kind of just a pattern that you recognize, with your thumb by the time I remember I just sometimes I just know where to press it at the same time. It's like a little game in within a game, but now it's gonna be a little bit harder. And the
Yep.
reason and the how they're gonna do it a little bit harder is that depending on the play, the meter actually will get shifted. The tougher the play, say if the ball is in the hole and you're moving your fielder, the meter might shift all the way to the right at the end of the meter and not in the center. So it's no longer in the center. I always say it's no longer in the center 100% of the time. It'll still be there for the daily routine grounders. However, if it's a tough play, it pretty much if you're moving your fielder, expect the meter to move. I was playing a little bit before doing slow grounders and then, balls in the hole, and if I move my player with my left stick, expect that meter to move, and, to be honest with you, I really can't do like, usually beforehand, I'll do the meter right away, like, once the ball was hit. You gotta train yourself not to do that because you'll
Yeah.
get into the red.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and that is something that I really like because, fielding at least in the past few years, like fielding has been so automatic. Like even if they
Mhm.
shrink the region of the green to make it like a tougher, like perfect throw to get, um, I still feel confident in my ability to kind of hit that middle part almost every time, just because of the amount of hours and ground balls that I've seen, in my time playing MLB The Show. But now that is a really dynamic change that I it's gonna take some time to get used to, but I'm really excited about it because fielding itself has pretty much been, like, easy, like, in the
Yes.
past few years. Like I think that's honestly just the best way to describe it. Regardless if you're playing on legend, if you're playing on beginner, fielding is just pretty easy. All you have to do is just hit that green part in the meter and you're good. And the green part is always in the same spot. With this new change, like you said, there you're gonna have to train yourself to not just think about that middle part, especially with balls that you have to go either right or left to get. Even I wonder if it even is like slow rollers and you're coming in, will it still be
Yeah.
in the middle or is that move too?
No. Yes, it shifts.
Okay.
It's actually pretty fun to know that it, like, changes like that,
Yeah.
dynamically.
But
Definitely brings a skill gap. Skill
that's what I
gap
was
is
just gonna
going back
say.
up.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You take the
I I
what
was just gonna say, yeah, it provides a skill gap to a part of the game that just hasn't really had one. Whether you think there needed to be one or not, like I still think the emphasis should be on the batter pitcher matchup. Of course, I think that's still the most important part of the game. Um, and nobody likes making errors in the field, especially when you make a good pitch to get the ground ball result that you want or the shallow fly ball that you want, whatever it is. Like nobody likes making fielding errors, but at the end of the day, fielding is not easy in real life. And in the game, it's basically automatic every time. So to me, this is a really good change. And I honestly think so. Like, if you have the green meter, let's say a routine play, you're still going to have the green meter basically right in the middle.
Yep.
And then you have a tough play where it kind of shifts all the way to the right. I almost feel like the hardest ones are going to be the ones that end up between those. Because if you know it's a really hard play, you can kind of hold your button a little bit longer to get towards that green,
Mhm.
but if it's an easy play, you can kind of stick in the middle. That in between section might be the toughest timing for people, I feel like.
Yep. That and dives. Well, dives, like, you don't know because it really depends on your fielder.
Yep.
Sometimes your fielder could depending on, like, the transition and, the animation you get, if you have a diamond fielder, he'll get up right away, and then you could just get that good throw in. If you don't, you're gonna be rushing it, and then it might be always to the right,
Yeah.
and we saw that super dives are no longer a thing. No longer a thing, so
Which is, I mean, that I don't mind the super dives that much. What
Mhm.
was frustrating to me was the fact that never any like there was never any difficulty with the throw. Like the only time
Okay.
somebody would actually beat something when you make like a super dive play is if they just had like 99 speed or was a really fast runner or whatever. But like player could have one fielding or 99 fielding. If you made that dive, your guy was getting up quick and ready to gun it to first base, regardless of anything else. There was never a penalty to the actual throw. It was just once you get that dive animation, you're locked into a good throw to first base basically every time, unless you miss it on the meter. Um, so I think now that the dives are a little bit changed, should help with getting some more base hits, some more base runners overall, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, a very good thing. Also notice with the dives, the ball doesn't vacuum every single time. It like I was watching Gnome do it, and then I was playing myself self, and it was like 50-50 sometimes with these tough dives, which makes sense. You're not gonna get every single dive that's out there, and it's cool to see that as well. But before we move on, I do want to bring up the accuracy attribute, which they mentioned. So the attribute will actually depend on how big your green section will be in the meter. So just how big the sweet spot, which they mentioned in the feature is. And yeah, that's pretty cool to know. I feel like Cougs, I mean, you always been a component of this, but up the middle defense, it couldn't be any bigger than now.
Oh yeah, no, I when I build my team, I always kind of focus on good power. I like well rounded cards. Obviously, your guys like Babe Ruth with the big hitting and power is always going to be nice. But now that defense is such a big thing, especially up the middle, like you said, guys with good fielding at second and short are going to be pretty vital because, especially with what we can talk about later on with some of the rule changes that they've implemented in MLB The Show now with what they're emulating from real life MLB, up the middle defense is going to be pretty important. So yeah, the I'm liking all the stuff with fielding so far. I got to get my hands on the game and play and experiment with some of the things, see what some of the penalties are. Maybe even try some out of position cards just to see like how severe some of these penalties are when we're talking about these new changes. Um, but I think this is a good change for the game, and this hopefully will make you look at more than just the 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 hitting and then the fielding as a secondary thing. Like I think hitting is always going to be king, but like when you're evaluating a card and who to start and whatever, I feel like fielding should be a good conversation to have when you're making those decisions. So I'm on board with basically everything they've done so far with the fielding aspect.
I agree. And couldn't be like you said, I can't wait to try it out this week. And that we'll talk about next episode how we feel about it. If there's anything we would change or just give feedback in general. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Let's move on to the next subject that they mentioned, and that was quirks. First thing before we go over the new quirks, I want to mention that passive quirks are no longer a thing. They removed all of them, indicating that all the quirks that they we have now are going to impact gameplay. So like say that's daytime hitter, so on. Any gameplay type of quirks stay, all the other ones move out, which is it makes sense. Be honest with you, it feels like you're just giving quirks to give them quirks sometimes, but this time actually affects gameplay. And including that, they added 4 new ones. I'm going to read them off right here. We got the pickoff artist increases success rate of pickoffs. We got break outlier, pitcher loses less break when tired. Table setter performs better when no runners are on. Bad ball hitter excels at hitting pitches outside the zone. Vlad, Altuve, they'll definitely have that there. But yeah, it's good to see first off the passive quirks removed and now added the new quirks. Especially I like to see that break outlier there. Coop.
Yeah, no, I felt like that was kind of a long time coming to remove the passive quirks. Like they were, they were cool or whatever. If a player had a lot of quirks on their page, they looked
Yeah.
like a boss, but a lot of I think the biggest thing is that for the person that doesn't play MLB The Show actively, you look at a guy like Mike Trout and you see he has the bomber quirk, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna crush home runs. When really it's just a power threshold that gets him that quirk. It's just a visual thing. So I think removing all of the uh passive quirks or the ones that don't have any gameplay effect is a good move. So now everything you actually see will have an impact on the field, and it's going to actually make me look at those a lot more because realistically, this year the only thing I really looked at was to see if a pitcher had outlier. Like
Mhm.
I would look every now and again to see if maybe a guy had like Dave versus Knight player or like you know what their clutch would be like performs better with runners on base, whatever that one was. I would look at those every once in a while, but outlier was really the only one I focused on for most of the year. Now everything that I see there is going to be like, okay, so now I can expect him to do this, and this, and not have to worry about any of the other stuff that might be crowding that screen. So I think this is a really good change, and the fact that they made some on-screen display adjustments that actually show all the quirks in a much more streamlined way. So overall, I think everything they've done with quirks is good, and the new quirks, uh, they're pretty good. I like what they're doing. I like the table setter one,
Mhm.
and I like the or I don't know if I would say I like the pickoff one, but I'm curious to see just how much of a benefit that is to have versus not having it because I don't really feel like people pick off all that much in online to begin with. But I'm curious to see if that quirk is a regular thing, if people maybe do it a little bit more.
Yeah. Totally. And it's funny how you mentioned outlier. See the picture I sent you in Discord. Look at how fast Jacob DeGrom was throwing in the tech test so far.
Am I looking at 103 miles an hour right now, Scuffy? Or am I kind of just seeing things?
You are correct. This is a picture from the Hard Part, community member in this, MLB Show community, and, yeah, he posted his picture. DeGrom is throwing 103.
Oh, it's gonna be a
See,
long year, boys.
we all know that Grom has outlier too, so this is, gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, and
See,
actually,
how that goes.
Degrom was said Degrom might actually be a little banged up right
Oh,
now.
tight.
Yeah.
Not news I have to worry about anymore, Cougs. Not for me. It's
You can
funny, I
sleep.
saw that. And you see the comments, and you see all these Met fans putting, that meme of, James Franco and the noose and saying, "First time?"
First I am. Man.
So,
Well, hopefully he gets
I
better
hope for the
quick.
best, though, I really do. I
Yeah.
do not wanna see him sidelined. Him in baseball is needed,
Yep.
so hopefully it's nothing serious.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
yeah, either way, virtually, he'll still, kick our butt, so we got that to look forward to. Let's get to the subject that we mentioned before, and that was the clutch attribute. It actually means something here. It's
Yep.
funny because we seen how these cards got juiced up, and usually how they got juiced up for 22, you increase the clutch, right? Or something like that to get to
Yeah.
the 99. And we're like, what the hell does it do? Now you finally get to know what it does. Well, they change it to know what it does. And I gotta say, this is a big change. This is pretty damn cool if you ask me too.
Yep.
Clutch comes into effect when you have runners in scoring position. Now, for hitters, um, depending on what their clutch is, well, actually, let me say for hitters, when you have runners in the scoring position, say you have a 90 clutch, and then say that hitter has for his contact against righties and lefties, 75 on both sides. That clutch will take precedent over your contact when you have runners in scoring position. Therefore, you have 90 contact for those for that hitter in that scenario. That's pretty clutch becomes for hitter wise, that's some important attribute to look for. Now on the flip side, you have for pitchers when runners in scoring position, it will take precedent over your hits per nine. I mean, that changes a lot.
Oh yeah.
Just hearing that.
No, I'm really curious to see how that works because now, once again, we were talking earlier about when you evaluate a player, you're looking at his hitting attributes and you're looking at his fielding or whatever. Now you got to think, what is that clutch? Because that clutch is going to show up in big moments. Like, yeah, a guy like Babe Ruth who has 125 contact both ways, you know, that he's still going to be pretty good there. But now that that clutch is basically replacing that, if his clutch is not as high, you're now almost at a disadvantage. So I hope that clutch, like, I hope they maybe rework the attribute to give it to actual players that are really good at situational hitting. But that is a huge change because not only does that affect the gameplay, that affects gameplay in big situations, in like game-changing situations. And then the same goes for the pitchers with the pitching clutch replacing the hits per nine. All of that stuff is a change that I was not expecting. Because you would never really think that the contact attribute would basically like kind of go away in a certain situation or the hits per nine would go away. Like the fact that they were able to code in an attribute replacing an attribute in a specific situation is honestly kind of crazy. So I really want to see how that actually like works out in gameplay because that is a change that I think is super interesting. Um, but I'll just have to kind of see it when I see it and kind of experiment myself with the tech test. But I think that's a really like a cool change.
Yes, hands down. It changes up the game a bit, and it's another strategy to look at for pulling construction to your lineup. So it's gonna be cool. There's a lot of new changes that are going to affect strategies everywhere to your lineup, not just with the clutch, but with other news that we got as well. We'll mention a little bit later on the podcast. Since we're going in order, did this show a nice cool feature, Statcast, where you could see the tendencies of what's currently going on in the game? Are you swinging at does this pitcher throws, I think first like two strike sinkers or is like 100 like say 80% of the time you get to see that. There's other cool things of I mean, the more stats the better kind of this is baseball after all, where you analyze every little thing when it comes to any stat you get right now. So I'm curious if that comes online too. I would assume it does.
I would think so, right? Like considering that hitter tendencies and stuff are part of, the whole feedback system when it comes to
Mhm.
results, like, I would think that'd be available there.
Yeah, I would
I
say
I
so too.
do I do wish there was still a way that that could just kinda always be shown on the
Mhm.
screen, maybe, like, in the PCI feedback where they have, like, the contact and the power and all that stuff, maybe even just have, like, the icons of what the quirks are, kinda around there somewhere, and then if you press, like, R2 or RT, whatever, then it would actually tell you what they are just in case you forgot what an icon meant. But I feel like that would be kinda nice to have, but regardless, still, it's a way to see them in the game quickly,
Yep.
when you're talking about quirks and tendencies. I tendencies should be there too, just with, like, kinda maybe DH Shohei Ohtani tendencies, 35% pull hitter or whatever it would be? I
Yeah.
think that'd be cool to
E
have just, like, a little bit more available, but it's still there.
Either way, it's going to be easier to pick up on pitching pattern,
Yeah.
hands down, against your opponent. It kinda gives you that template of, "Oh, hey, he's doing this 80% of the time. I better be aware of this and then adjust," and then go from there, especially if you're, like, in, like, a crucial game, like, maybe you're down by 3 runs, see what you're doing wrong, get to it's all about adjustments, right, on the next bat. So, this is how you make your adjustments, so that brings that little feature in. I think that's pretty cool, so, uh the next thing, I kinda think I'll leave this one to you because you know how much you talk about this or how much you, been wanting to see something new or just refreshed or consistency, I should just say, when it comes to feedback, and that's the swing analyst. You
Yeah.
wanna take I'll let you take that away.
So, okay, so basically they made some changes to the feedback system to try to show a little bit more information and to try to put an emphasis on what the priority information is after every swing. So first off, on the feedback, you're going to have the batter, you're going to have their contact, power, and vision rating, contact and power against the handedness of the pitcher. Um, and then so after a swing, you're gonna have the swing timing show up first. So the overhead, the plate with the red, yellow, green kind of timing that you see the swing on, that is showing up first. And then on the right of that is the PCI placement that we traditionally have seen. The reason they're doing that is because they made it pretty clear timing is key. Timing is priority number one when it comes to
Yep,
your swings in MLB The Show, which if you've played the game, you kind of knew that. You kind of knew that if you had good timing, it didn't really matter that much what your PCI was. We've seen some wild off PCI hits, home runs, extra base hits, whatever it is. So they're showing you that because they want that to be the first area of emphasis, and I think that's a good change because that everybody was looking at it backwards. Basically, everybody was looking at the PCI placement, and then they would see the timing.
yep,
But with the way that people pitch and online, people kind of just pitch fast. People want to get to the next pitch, they want to get to the next game, whatever it is. So you don't always have time to see everything you need to see. So now that they're showing you the stuff that matters first off or first and foremost right away, that's a good change. Now, as far as the and another thing on the PCI placement, they took off that middle circle of the PCI and just have the outer, inner, and the perfect dot in the middle. Um, because they said when you have a center, when you have a swing that's in the middle of that PCI, that little hollow yellow circle, there's a lot of ambiguity there. Like a lot of people think that is I'm in the center of the PCI, like I'm in that region, so this should be a good result. When with how their game works, is not always the case. So they're trying to give as little ambiguity as they can show while still having a lot of ambiguity because it is a baseball swing. Um, and then at the bottom, they still have, your contact. So it's like weak. They have the exit velocity, they have the launch angle. All that's good. Overall, I think this is better because it does show you the primary information that you need to see first. And hopefully that will make people actually realize a few more things about why they got the result they got. Um, but I still feel like there's going to be a little bit of confusion with the PCI placement aspect. I think the PCI placement is still going to cause frustration because if you have a good timing swing and a pretty good PCI and it still doesn't result in the outcome you want, which is going to happen. That's how the game works. There's still going to be that frustration. The hope is that hopefully this will provide a little bit more consistency in the outcomes that you see and the results you get, because the only way to study that and get better is if that actually gives you the information that you can use to get better. So hopefully it does all that. I think it's a good first sign. I still feel like the PCI needs a little bit of work to actually help the average player understand what the PCI is really showcasing. But other than that, I think this is a very solid uh, uh, kind of restructure of the feedback tool. I think the things they could add to it would be the perks or the quirks and the tendencies somewhere in there. But other than that, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I couldn't say. But I like how we get to see the swing timing right from the start. Be able to see that, because sometimes, like I'm one of those. I forget to look at the swing meter beforehand with 22, and I'm looking at the PCI. I'm like, what happened there? Why did that go to there? It's definitely going to make it a little bit more easier to decipher, I think.
Yes.
But like you said, we'll still see those hits. I think that's why they put the exit velocity in there. Even I think Kyle brought it up. If you bring up like that exit velocity at that angle, you could look it up baseball segment and the multiple type of results you will get, stuff like that. So it's a just a matter of time where we get to play, which we'll talk about, I guess, next week. Yeah, when we play the tech test. I think all the tech test stuff, we're gonna leave until next week. Even though
Yeah.
we see a few news today that I originally want to go over, I think we're just going to wait until next week when we get the full episode talking about the tech test and if there's another feature premiere as well. So we'll leave that there. But for now, that swing analyst, I'm like, want to see even I'm just, I'm itching to
Yep.
play the tech test, see how it goes. Another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the swing, I would just say with hitting, I guess, was the competitive setting. Now
Yes.
they notice our rumblings, big rumblings, while at about foul balls, swing, miss swings that are kind of not there because of the foul balls, and they adjust. It felt like it wasn't like a gameplay change. Felt like they adjusted or tweaked, this is just my opinion, of the gameplay, of the setting, and how they did that was make the plate vision 50% less than we see today in 22. Which brings up the question, is this something they could have done for 22 to help out this? Because they didn't really say how much or what they did to decrease the foul balls. We love to hear it, right? We
Yep.
love to hear about the foul balls, love the swing and misses, more swing and misses. I think that was the only change that was really done to combat that. We don't really know. I don't know. That's what I was getting in Kooks. Maybe you got something totally different. Either way, you love to see them, especially for online play, when you're facing another user with the competitive setting, getting more changes to get that more where user input matters the most, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're realizing that with the setting. Well, they
Yeah.
already do realize that, but they want to get it to a place where it is on that esport level.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the whole reason behind the competitive style of play is that user skill should help dictate more than any other feature or any other variable who wins that game. That's the idea behind it, and that's the hope that when you play on the competitive setting, if you're the better player, you should be able to win that game based off your skill. Now, as far as the foul ball stuff, that everything they said sounded great. 50% less with the vision. Overall, it's going to be easier to finish off at bats when there's two strikes. All of that stuff sounds great. That's really the one thing, though, that I am not going to get overly
Yep.
optimistic about or hyped about because I want to experience that for myself. Because I feel like in the past they have said that. They have said that there should be less foul balls, should be more strikeouts, blah, blah, blah. Um, but I still feel like we've kind of run into the same issues. So for this year, I want to hold off any judgment or not judgment, hold off any like feedback or reservations that I have because um I just want to experience it for myself. If I play the tech test and I notice a significant jump in the amount of strikeouts I'm getting, a significant decrease in the amount of foul balls that I'm both hitting and allowing, it's going to be great because that to me is arguably the most frustrating aspect about MLB 22 is that it just felt really difficult to basically finish off any batter with two strikes, regardless of what the pitcher's attributes were or the hitter's attributes. It just felt really tough. So
Yep.
that to me is one thing that if that all turns out well, it's going to be a great change, and I think it's going to make this game significantly more fun to play. But it's one of those things where I just kind of got to wait and see, and I got to test it out for myself.
Agreed. Then hopefully, like we said, next week, if we play enough, we'll have at least a glimpse of what we feel going there. Um,
Oh,
but
and
yeah,
just to say one more thing about that competitive setting.
um,
The competitive setting is in all Diamond Dynasty modes. Even if you're
yes,
playing play versus CPU, mini seasons, whatever it is, anything in Diamond Dynasty is going to be under that competitive play style. If you go play franchise or Road to the Show, you can switch it to simulation or whatever. Um, but anything in Diamond Dynasty is going to be under the competitive play style. So just keep that in mind.
yeah, good call. I completely forgot about that. So pretty much, if you're online, I gotta say, just
Yeah.
online, don't matter against user or computer, it's under that setting. Um, yeah, that was a good thing. Like it just the transparency of like even they mentioned like the weak hits we should see less of and so on. But I just gotta play it to really feel that way, right?
Yeah.
And hey, if that goes all well, we could be in for a great year. But the amount of stuff they're tackling from the community side of things has been quite great. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't think they're listening by now, I don't know what to tell you. Really don't know what to tell you because they are listening. They see
Yeah.
the same frustration that we see sometimes, and they're trying to make it the best they can. So
Yeah. I think they did a really good job at not only addressing the feedback that they got through pretty much all of 22, but actually executing on it and showing like the changes that they've made and how they're going to play out. Which goes back to what we said in the last podcast. They haven't been doing nothing, regardless of
mhm,
if we got a patch or not through MLB 22. They haven't been doing nothing. It's not like they've just been sitting there being like, "Oh, we're not going to make any changes." Like they've
twiddle your
been
thumbs.
working on all the changes that they've put in here, and now we get to see it in this gameplay feature premiere.
Yep, exactly. So it's cool to see, and we still have a few other things to go over. We got shifts. They Well, I should just say they incorporated the new rules from the CBA, whether it's the shifts. Now we even could say DH as well. They didn't do it. I mean, they already had like a pitch clock. I mean, we already know that if you're not putting an input, like for like 6 seconds, it automatically throws it. So that doesn't really need it. I think the only thing they didn't do was the pickoffs for game bounds, like which makes sense because
Yeah.
someone could really be a pain in the butt doing that when playing. It just won't be a fun experience. So they didn't add that. But overall, the shifts and DH, universal DH, that changes a lot of things, especially I mean, in all modes, to be honest with you, especially in ranked BR. I mean, starters are now maybe more reliable to draft. Like, you wouldn't think to draft like a 99. Oh, I mean, unless it's like Randy, I guess, last year in your BR. And now knowing that he could go 3 full innings for you, I mean, come on now. You would definitely be more viable again those stars. Even the silver stars like the Dustin May and Moose, that's what perks my mind. Of course, my mind sometimes always goes to BR. It's just
Yeah.
the way
That's
I
your
am.
mode.
Yeah, that is my mode. So I'm just thinking of new strategies and then putting the commons could be commons back on the bench with the high speed, better fielding,
Yep.
late inning. So, but either way, it's cool to see that we got the shifts in. I'm very curious, and they mentioned it on the feature period. I think it was Kyle saying how this will affect gameplay as well, because you're not in those extreme shifts. You still have the extreme shift, but you're not in like the grass infield.
Yeah.
I mean, the grass outfield. you have to stick in the infield. So I'm very curious on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I turned off auto shifts this year because I felt like they helped me just as much as they hurt me. Uh,
Mhm.
so for me, it was like, well, why even have them on then? So I took them off, but anytime I grounded into a shift, it was still frustrating. And I'm a fan of changing the rules on the shift, kind of like with the two infielders on each side of the bag. I'm
Yep.
a fan of that in real life, so it's a welcome addition for me in Diamond Dynasty. And like I said, there's still going to be shifts. It's not like everybody's going to be playing right where they're supposed to play. There's certain rule sets to it, so I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be something that is going to change gameplay, especially when we were talking about earlier with hitter tendencies too. So looking
Yep.
forward to it.
I am too. And then they brought in Kyle from, well, they brought in the other Kyle. And he brought a big news. Not only one thing, but 2 things right from the rip. He brought in co-op rewards, which we've been asking for, which kinda
Hmm.
makes sense. We were talking about this last episode where co-op was kinda like the base. They wanna see how it goes before they put rewards. They even said that last year, and now we're getting rewards, basically like the ranked season setup where you have a particular rating and you try to get, the World Series, get the big reward, but now you get to do it with your buddies.
Yep.
And this is big for competitive players, content. I mean, it's big for everyone. I mean, but I'm excited to see that how if they do like how you do a leaderboard in co-op without not having like a club like we see in EHSL in NHL games because they do where you make a club and then that club is ranked the leaderboard or you can do stuff like that. I'm very curious if they'll eventually go that route of creating a club, and then whoever's in that club could play with those separate uniforms
Mhm.
and then play in, co-op ranked, and they'll share the awards throughout. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but either way, it's cool to see that we get co-op ranked, and not only that, he also mentioned that Shohei Ohtani is finally be able to use the way he is supposed to be used in this game, by being a two-way player where you can actually have him as a starting pitcher and be the DH at the same time. Not only that, say if you don't want to be him the starter, you could use his secondary positions in the outfield and plug him into the lineup any way you want him. That's he's legit might be, and we kind of mentioned this last year if they brought this capability into 22, he might be the largest live series player on the market for like the first 2 months. Has to be bigger than Trout.
Yeah, no, I think this would have been cool to have in the game last year when he was the cover athlete. Like, I think a lot of us probably wanted to use him the way he was actually used, especially coming off that MVP season and everything. But hey, it's better late than never. I'm sure it probably wasn't an easy change. They probably had to rewrite how certain cards were able to be moved across your lineup and stuff. So if it wasn't in the game last year, it was probably for good reason. Because the last thing we want is for it to be in the game and be broken. So I'm happy that it's finally in the game now. And I'm with you. I think Otani is going to be crazy valuable early just because of his
Mhm.
functionality and the way he's being used. And did they mention, so like, let's say I start Otani in a ranked seasons game and then I move him to the outfield. Do I move him to the outfield in my actual lineup, or do I move him like when I'm starting a
I
game? Do I just put him in right, like from the bench type thing? Like how
you just put him at DH, I think. I think that's
DH?
the way
Okay,
you face it. Yeah, you just will have to have him as your DH and then
gotcha.
go from there. And then you could
Um,
probably take whoever you want from the bench to be DH and then put him in the outfield, right? Maybe? I don't know.
Probably, yeah.
We want it that
I'm
way.
sure we'll be able to mess around with that in the tech test because that was one thing
Yep.
they showed off. But the other thing is that, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, when we were talking about the Negro League storylines, Martin Dehigo, the guy who could play all nine positions, that's another guy. Like, is he going to have a starting pitcher card, or is he going to have a position player card that you can then just throw around in the
Ooh.
rotation? Like, what's the possibilities there? Like, the fact that this is finally being implemented and actually being, used the way it's supposed to be used. Uh, Opens up a lot of possibilities for some really cool gameplay elements with some of these different two-way player guys. So we'll see. I'm happy it's there, and I'm definitely gonna mess around with it in the tech test.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to just draft him in VR and then go from there, see how it goes. Try to be my first guy, go there. I mean, it's free redrafts here, Cook, so it's my time.
Oh man, you're
Um,
good night.
my time. But yeah, we'll talk about the tech test and more next week. We'll leave that full episode in, and of course, if we get another game feature for next episode, we'll go over that as well. But Kooks, well, I'm looking forward to 23. I mean,
Yeah.
we're 2 features in without a gameplay trailer, and I feel like the hype in the community is rolling and keep on rolling on that hype train, and who knows what happens when we get the gameplay trailer. So, but either way, fun episode this week. We'll talk about the tech test all next week. Be sure to make sure you're sub to our YouTube if you're watching right now, youtube.com/inside the show. We're also on Twitter, twitter.com/inside the show PC. Once again, that's inside the show PC. You can find my buddy Cougs on Twitter, twitter.com/Cougs46. You find it all socials there. I'm at Scuffy BD TV. You guys enjoyed the tech tests. Let us know how you feel in the comments of this video. We'll talk about those questions and comments for next week on the next week's episode. And let me get out of here before, I stumble across my words like I've been doing throughout this episode. So you guys take care. You guys have a good one. See you next time.